As the wind erodes and the water corrodes, altering everything we think we know, but we don't. It's all temporary, and it used to, but now the thought doesn't scare me or keep my feet from following one after another until I slumber. Then my mind, not my feet, wander and dream of people and places I'll never see again. I've mended as much mental anguish as I can, and now I try to use this language to take these thoughts from my head to my pen. Cause though I don't speak of my dead friends or the circumstances, often the blow never softens or yields. I'm in a desolate field, lonesome stargazing, night blazing, chasing traces of remembrance and reverence of relevant friends and acquaintances, and faceless and nameless names and faces. And while my mind is racing through these photo albums and quotations, all these people and places far from me, for only land and stars I see when I'm outside of the mile-high city, which is not my city, for I was born 1,000 miles northeast of there, in the land of beer and lakes and pistol fire on MLK's birthday, where there is no minorities and segregation's mandatory. But that's a whole nother story altogether, and no matter the weather or hardships that any place brings, I'll still laugh when people shiver and say it's freezing, or say, hey, no, wait, I already had 18 mixed drinks, but I guess it's a Midwest thing, and I'm a mess from a dirty city and brought most of this filth I've gathered with me.
Welcome to another week of Experience Andy Weins Live, where we dig into one topic all about growth and development. And this week, we're going to talk about when, then language. Often in our lives, we use the word if. If it's this magical time that never happens, while when is very intentional. So when things happen, then we go out and execute. Coming up after the break. The verse after the verse.
My work labors on as lovers sleep in each other's arms, remaining calm and collect. I begin my self-reflection process of redemption. Honestly, I don't know where this road leads, or if I'm even going. Could be rowing upstream, or worse, chasing my dreams to the peak, to finally be somebody doing something with what I have, rather than saying again and again that I can't and I won't anymore from this day forward. Cause Lord knows the past is set in stone, the present is yours to mold and to use for future uses. I know I'm a nuisance, I'm told, cause I'm neither young nor old, nor giant nor gnome. I don't sleep on these streets usually, though I've made thrones of my own. I don't sit well with idle hands, though don't know what to do when I'm home all alone. I'm a menace thrown from society, and as it lies to me, I'll smile silently as others do as they please. I am watching and listening, and I'm grinning all the while, cause sometimes all you can really do is smile. So as the work labors on, I'll keep on singing my songs, and this day's never done. We just keep on spinning around that sun, and well, through all these miles and trials, all I've learned to do is smile. Is to smile.
Welcome to another week of Experience Andy Weins Live, where we're going to be jumping into when, then, language of life to accomplish all the things you want to accomplish while reducing your anxiety. Kicking things off, though, I want to give my thank you, show a little gratitude, as I always start the shows with, to Christina Wenman. Christina has a podcast called Learning from Your World Podcast, and last week we did an in-person session here in my warehouse, which led to all these amazing ideas. We went for over 90 minutes. We could have talked for hours. We had an amazing session, really digging into parts of my book, things that she didn't necessarily agree with me on, and it led to some very great, healthy conversation. She also has a book out there, Success Through Your Eyes. She wrote that book when she was 17, and so for a young, aspiring author and entrepreneur, she really has put herself out there and shares her ideals with the world. And this Friday coming up, I'll be joining her on stage. It goes right into the, pay the bills around here. Join her on stage at the Podcast Town live event, 9 a.m. this Friday in Waukesha, Wisconsin, where we're going to sit down and dive into the next section of my book. So in my book, I write towards the end there, if there's something within, or there's something here in the book that triggers you, it's because it's really triggering something within you, right? It's your own perspective, your own desires, your own animosities or fears that's really triggering you. So let's have an argument. And I'm very blunt about this. Let's have an argument, because through conflict, we get resolution. And I am constantly seeking resolution. I tell people all the time, life is a contact sport. So get out there, make contact, create conflict, because then you get resolution. So that's what we'll be doing this Friday. So thank you, Christina, for having me on your podcast. And being a willing participant to jump on board and join me live on stage in front of full audience. So I'm excited for that this Friday. All right, let's talk about when then language. In my book, I talk about shit words that do not serve. And one of the words that I talked about in the book is the word if. And as my good friend Brad Herda always says, whenever someone says, if this happens, he says, when this happens. I pull my book. I have my book readily available to me so we can talk about it, right? Brad Hurt is also known for saying that hope is not a plan. In the book, you'll see that we talk about that, right? That hope is also not a plan. So when it comes to the word if, right, is a word wherein you have unlimited possibilities. Well, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? Actually, I have on my board, I was talking to someone like 3-4 months ago, and still on my board to solve this question. It's what if I did versus what if I do, right? Because this word if, it's not concrete. I wrote the other day, I was at the beach yesterday, went to the beach yesterday. That's my place, right? When I go to the beach, let's go to use when language. When I go to the beach, things in my life appear simpler. When I'm there, it makes a lot more sense. So I wrote, if is a matter of choice, when is a matter of time. So if we have unlimited choices, and we know from what Dr. Bill Crawford talks about, right? In life, there's 3 things you have to do. You have to be born, you have to die, and in between, you have to live. Everything else there is a choice. And so if is this, well, what if this happens? And what if this? And what if I do that? It's like, well, make a choice. And then you shift from what if to when, to if this to when this. And now it's a matter of time. And then once you have the when, okay, when this happens, right? When I'm running late in the morning, then I do this, right? When I go for that new job and I'm interviewing, right? And they reject me from the position, then I do this. Because you can also say, what if they give me the offer, right? When I get the offer, then I'm going to accept it. Then I'm going to counter it. Then I'm going to tell them this is how much I'm worth. And what happens is nothing. Nothing's actually changed. However, your anxiety is going to drop in that moment. Because instead of having these 150 arbitrary ifs, you start to have these logical whens. Often people come to me, especially entrepreneurs, and they say, well, what if this happens? And what if this happens? Like, wait, hold on. You've already made the decision to be an entrepreneur. How about when this happens? Because there's a certain level of predictability in this world. So when this happens, I'll do this. Yesterday, my assistant, Emmy, everyone knows, anybody that watches this show, listens to this show, knows that Emmy is awesome, right? So Emmy is coming up to Wisconsin for the first time ever. Yesterday, she lives down in the Carolinas, and the flights were delayed. Had nothing to do with the hurricane, right? When the hurricane comes, then we do this, right? They're delayed because American whatever, right? And throughout the day, she's like, well, when this happens, then we'll do this. When this happens, we do this, right? And then she called me at one point. She goes, I'm probably not going to make it until midnight. I'm like, cool. Then we're not doing dinner. Because originally we had 6 o'clock dinner plans. Okay, cool. So when your flight gets delayed, then we move dinner to Thursday. What's next? She goes, I don't want to be a burden. Oh, we're good, right? You're not here. Flights got delayed. It's a logical thing. When your flights get delayed, what do? Well, then we'll push dinner to another day. It was that simple. And she's like, oh, I hope that's okay. And it's like, yeah, we're good, right? Because I plan for shit happening. They talk about anxiety. Anxiety is when you have the ability to control something, you have some influence over something, and yet you're anxious about the outcome. And often I find myself, right, as I sit back and reflect on the times that I'm full of anxiety and my insecurities peer up, right? And my wolf of weakness starts a barking, right? I'm often running scenarios in the future that I have a level of control over. Well, what if this happens? And what if this happens? What if this happens? Well, when this happens, we do that. This whole thought process really kicked off last week. I was working with Andrew Crum, who's the integrator within our business. He owned a junk removal company. We merged a couple months ago and came together, and now he works for our company. And when he ran a company, it was him, and he would have a couple of his firefighter buddies that help him along the way. And now we have 20 plus employees. And anyone that has employees knows that employees get sick, they get tired, they get hurt, they choose not to come to work. That's a fact of life. And so last week, he was talking about all the things that could have gone wrong, or 2 weeks ago, he was talking about all the things that could have gone wrong this week. And I go, okay, well, when this happens, we do that. When this happens, we do that. And when this happens, they do that. And by the time we knocked out the first 3 or 4 most likely scenarios of things that could go in our business and negatively impact our business, then it's like, then all those things that the anxiety is gone, because now we put a plan in place. This morning, Andrew was off. He was with his family this morning, went to lunch and brunch or whatever they did. So I came in and assumed his responsibilities this morning. We had 3 people not come in and 1 person call in. So we have a staff of 20 people. We got 16 bodies here this morning. All right. And I'm like, okay, well, when that happens, this is what we do. We adjust this 1-day job. That's like a day and a half job. Guess what? That just turned into a 2-day job, just like that. Because we wanted to have 10 people at that job. Guess what? We got 6 going. And that's the plan, right? So when people call in on a Monday morning, then this is what we're going to adapt. This is how we're going to adjust. And the plan was in place. There was no panicking. We ran the process. We ran the play. Last Friday, we had a job that was scheduled for 12 hours. They got it done in 6. Okay, well, when this job runs early, then we can do donation runs, right? When we schedule extra people on Saturday and everybody shows up, then we can work in the warehouse. It's really, really simple. So we've now eliminated, well, is it positive? Is it negative? Is it good? Is it bad? It's like, well, maybe. One of my mentors early in my career, Ray Gagnon, and I talk about this in my book, one of my favorite quotes of all time. He said this. He said, Andy, there's no such thing as good news or bad news, only new information and what you do with it. And then there's that old Chinese proverb where the Chinese farmer, he has a son, and the son, they have a horse, and the horse takes off. And his neighbors come by, oh, isn't that so bad? Your horse left. He goes, well, maybe. And then his son chases after the horse, and he gets the horse. And not only does he get the horse met up with other horses, and now he brings all the horses back. And all the neighbors come by, and they're like, oh my God, isn't this so great? You have all these horses now. Well, Chinese farmer said, well, maybe. And then as the son is breaking in the new horses, one of the new horses bucks him off, and he breaks his arm. The neighbors come by, oh, your only son, broken arm, can't work on the farm. Isn't that so bad? He says, well, maybe. And then after that, the army shows up, and they're coming through the village, and they're taking all able-bodied men to go fight another war. And the son is there with a broken arm, and the army passes on him, so he stays home with the father. And then all the villagers show up and said, well, isn't that so great that your son gets to stay home? And the Chinese farmer said, well, maybe. All along the way, he knows that, okay, this is only new information and what I do with it. He's responding to the situation already at hand because he's anticipating something else happening in the future. Here's the opportunity you have in your life. When that wolf of hate, of insecurity comes up a barking, right? When you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, the old HALT we talked about in one of the first episodes, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, when you're not operating optimally, right? Then you get to choose how you respond. In the book, 4 Agreements, the 4th agreement talks about always doing your best. And your best is different every day because when you wake up every day, you are a whole new person. Some days your best is going to be great, and some days your best is going to be barely good enough, and yet it's good enough to get through the day. So when you make this agreement to yourself to put forth the best, and you understand that, when things happen in life, then you can make adjustments. You now have the opportunity to pre-implant thoughts in your head before the stimulus comes a knocking. Because in life, you have 2 choices. When there's a stimulus, a situation occurring, you can choose to operate from your lower lizard brain, your fight, flight, and freeze, your fear-based reflexes, and you can react to the stimulus, which is typically the one piece of the whole situation, or you can use your big, clear, creative brain, confident brain, and you can respond to the entire situation. What happens is we normally focus on the one thing, the one stimulus, the one thing that bothers us the most, the one thing that triggers us. We hear that often, that word these days. Oh, I got triggered, right? I call it getting twitchy. Sometimes I get twitchy when there's that one thing I get twitchy about, right? And all of a sudden I'm having an emotional response, an emotional reaction, right? And when the whole situation is going well or going all right or fine, good, great, and there's that one thing that just irks me, right? I allow that to take over sometimes. And when I put a thought into my head ahead of time, then I already have a predisposition. Maybe there's people, I went to the beach this weekend. There's a guy that I've known for years at the beach. I really don't like the guy. I don't particularly care for him. We don't have a lot in common. We have common friends. We're not buddies. When I leave the beach or go to the beach, I don't say hi and bye to him. Well, yesterday at one point, he was put on. We were the last two guys. There was four of us going to play, and these two guys were like, we'll play. And we're the last two that weren't playing. And I was like, okay, when I have the opportunity to play volleyball, then I play. Right. And I made that choice. I'm at the beach. I got a limited amount of time. I'm going to go play volleyball. And I know when I get on the court, him and I are going to beef. We don't get along great. Right. I know he's going to say some things I don't care for. And so I decided when he says or does things that bother me, then I'm going to remember it's 72 degrees out. It's late September in Wisconsin. I'm playing volleyball, and that's a pretty good place to be in my life. And so when he projected onto me, right, I didn't take it personal. Go back to the 4 agreements, right? The 3rd agreement, don't take things personal. I know him projecting had nothing to do with me. It had to do with him. So I didn't take it personal. And we ended up playing the game. We had a couple good hits, a couple good plays, a couple not so good plays, right? We lost the game. In the grand scheme of life, I got to play volleyball for 20 minutes on a beautiful day, right? And that's what I focused on because I pre-implanted in my head, when people irritate me, then I will remember that the way that they are projecting has nothing to do with me. When this particular person that I don't get along with says things that irritate me, then I'll choose not to react. I anticipate there's going to be people in life that aren't going to jive with me. I anticipate going through the day where things are not going to go as I predict. Then I can make a choice. Am I going to let this derail me the rest of my day? Or am I going to stand up and show up for me, the person that wants to be there? Because the situation was I'm at the beach. It's a Sunday. I'm not working. I'm here by choice. I got there early. I read my book. I had such an amazing day. I went to my friend's wedding. I ended up having dinner with my brothers, right? My parents. I had a great. Why would I let 20 minutes and a handful of comments negatively impact me? That's a legitimate question. Why would I do that? Mathematically speaking, that's pretty foolish. 20 minutes of a full day of a great experience. And yet I used to let things like that bother me. I used to let people that cut me off in traffic piss me off. I used to let comments on Facebook or LinkedIn irk me at my soul because I fed that wolf of weakness. Because I lived in this world of if this happens, then I'm going to do that. If that happens, I'm going to do that. If this happens, I'm going to do that. And my insecurities led the way. And now that I live a growth-minded life, and now that I live a life of control, I live a life where I get to choose what language I put into my own brain with my thoughts. I get to be proactive. I get to respond to situations rather than reacting to the stimulus. Then I get to live the life I want to live. I get to look at my wants right there. I have 4 wants in my life. I get to say, okay, hold on. What do I want? And how does this situation get me closer to my wants in the world? We've talked about it, I don't know, 3-4 months ago. You got to have goals, right? You get to have goals. You get to define your left and right limits, your boundaries. You get to decide the life you live. And when you decide that life, then the rules are already there. Your boundaries are established. Your goals are clear. And then when people or ideas enter into your purview, the boundaries of what's acceptable is already established, and they'll find themselves out. You'll be able to clearly articulate, does this opportunity, action, whatever, get me closer to my goals? So the choice is very simple, ladies and gentlemen. Choose to have goals. Talked about that a handful of episodes again. Choose to set your boundaries. Input when then language into your brain. Look at a situation you have coming up that you think might go unfavorable, a situation that might cause anxiety. Give yourself some when thens. When this happens, then I do that. When this happens, then I do that. Pre-input your responses so when you are in the moment, your subconscious, when it takes over, you've already reprogrammed that software. As always, I challenge you this week and every week to get out there, do the fucking thing, tell the world who you are, and show the fuck up. We'll see you next week.
Through all these miles and trials, all I've learned to do is smile. Is to smile.